Good morning, my regular peeps. How are you today? My name is Praiseful. Welcome to the 13th episode of PF Thinks. How are you guys holding on? I believe that you guys are fine. Now, what I'm going to be sharing today may be a bit controversial, but please remember that this platform is PF Thinks. So the thought is mine, and it's basically the things I question and the things I have observed and the things that bother me. So if this contradicts your belief, please hold on to your belief. There is no problem with that. This is not a hard and fast rule. Today, I have come to ask a question. Who is a child of God? Now, this is a question that has bothered me for years. And because I love to think and I love to, look at things from a different lens. So you pardon me today if this contradicts your beliefs. I am aware that a lot of people all over the world, a lot of religion, try to monopolize God. So Muslims will say God is a Muslim, Christians will say God is a Christian, Buddhists will say God is a Krishna or something. Everyone tries to lay hold on God. Good morning, everyone joining me. Everyone tries to hold on to God, and everyone tries to exclude other people. So there are people who believe that, hey, if you don't do this particular thing, right, you are not a child of God. If you don't follow this particular format, you are not a child of God. If you don't, do sinner's prayer, for example, you are not a child of God. I mean, I've had all kinds of theses, but the question is, who has God himself spoken to that you are my child? Now, for those who believe that, hey, if you don't do sinner's prayers, you are not a child of God, we've had situations, even in the Bible, where a Cornelius was, had gone to call Peter, and Peter had a dream where God has told him, do not call unclean what I've called clean. And Peter eventually got in there, and while he was still speaking, he had not asked for altar call, he has not done sinner's prayer, he has not done many of the things we do. He has not done believers class. The Bible says, and the Holy Ghost came down, and the people began to speak in tongues. Now, if you look at that model, it contradicts totally everything we have held on to as Christians. But that's not where I'm going. Now, if you say, this is your child, if someone shows up and the person says, I am your child, what are you likely going to look for? You will look for how well the person resembles you, isn't it? Now, if the person still insists that I am your child, you gave birth to me, you impregnate my mother, what do you order for? You order for a DNA test. What does DNA test reveal? DNA test will show the combination of your genes to be sure that your genes match. And once it matches, automatically you cannot controvert the claim that you actually fertilized the egg that produced that child. Now, who is a child of God? If we stay with the English definition, and I always love to keep things simple, a child of God is someone who has been given birth by God and who looks like God. Now, so a child of God cannot just be by many of the things we do. So let's keep it simple and please think with me today, right? So what we do consistently is anyone who doesn't align with our known way of reaching God, we exclude them and we claim they are not God's children. But the Bible says he's the God of all flesh, and every holy book agrees that God is the creator of heaven and earth, and God is the creator of mankind. So if God has made man in his image, and every man, right, he has made them in his image, right, then why would we say every other person that God has created are not God's children, right? Why would we say that? But let's even agree that that is true. Now, if we say, okay, we are God's children, how come we are not producing God's result? So I want us together to check God's DNA today. Now, if you have a sheet of paper in front of you, I want you to tabulate it. This is a pure science work. Trust me, I'm not a theologian. I don't claim to be one. I just love God and I love to think. Now, if you tabulate the paper in front of you, let us check God's gene and match it against certain people's genes. Now, so if you tabulate it into 3. If you put God in 1, if you put you in 1, right? So if you put God in 1, if you put you in 1, then if you put others, so if you put others, let's say inventors, in the other one. Now, what are God's genes, right? So what are the characteristics of God? Now, I know that you are likely going to call holiness and the rest of them. Can we mix God's competence and, God's character together? Right. So if you do this, you will say God is a creator. Good. So that's one attribute of God. Number 2, God is love. Right? So those two, one is competence, one is character. Right? So God is love. God is a creator. God, number 3, is omnipresent. God is sovereign. That's number 4. God is omnipresent, omnipotent, right? God is sovereign. God is omniscient, right? And God is love. Okay, so let's stay with those ones. Now, I want us to check you against God's DNA and see if you match. Now, God is the creator of heaven and earth. Is there any specific thing that you have created that the whole world is using, right? So let's check. So if you match creator, write yes. If you don't match it, put no. Now, let us go to love, right? If you match love, and love, it means love. Love means you love the entire humanity, irrespective of who they are, what they have, and you are able to forgive them, right? So, if they say that someone has hurt you, you have love in your heart to forgive almost immediately. You have love in your heart to accommodate them, that if you were the one who is in charge of sun, you will still ensure that sun shines on those who love you and those who don't love you, right? So can you check whether you match that, right? Now, it takes love to innovate. It takes love to invent, right? So can you check if you match that? Now, let's go to omnipresent. Now, which means God is known and is visible all over the world. Now, omnipresent, are you visible all over the world? Are you visible all over the world? Right? Yes or no? Right? Most of the time your answer will be no. Right? Now, let us check again. Are you sovereign? Are you sovereign? God is sovereign. Are you sovereign in your sector? Let's even stay in the sector you belong to, the sector where you work. Are you sovereign in a way that your thoughts and your ideas is what everyone looks for in your sector? Right? Did you pass that? Yes or no? If you say yes, it means you are matching God's DNA. If you say no, you didn't match God's DNA. Now, so we have checked creator, we have checked love, we have checked omnipresent, we've checked sovereign. Now, let us check, which one did we say again? Let us check omniscience, right? Which means all-knowing, kind of, right? So again, let's stick to your sector. Let's not even say all over the world. Let's say stick to your sector. That you are the king of your sector and you know almost everything in your sector. That your brain is what determines, your God-given brain is what determines the thought in your sector. Can you pass that? Yes or no? Right. So if we stay with those ones, then you would realize that you cannot pass the DNA test of God. So how can you say you are God's child when you think just by being an usher, you have passed the test of being God's child? If you check the parable of the not the prodigal son, the parable of the talent, right? Those guys were called wicked. The guy that hid his talent was called wicked, right? And it was thrown out, so which may be synonymous to being thrown out to hell or something like that. It was thrown out because it did not fully maximize the use of his God's given ability to benefit humanity. Right. That was why it was thrown out. Now, if your DNA is not matching the DNA of God, then something is wrong that we need to begin to look at. Now, let us go to the third column. So let us put a Bill Gates or a Mark Zuckerberg on the third column, right? On the third column. Let's put maybe Bill Gates there, right? Because many people believe that Bill Gates is not a child of God because he's not born again. I mean, people say that, and it's fine if you believe that. But let us match Bill Gates against God's DNA, right? The same way we matched yours. Now, so let us start from number one. Now, is Bill Gates a creator, right? Do you think he can pass that test? Is he a creator? Like the same way God is. Has he created anything that the whole world is using, that you are using, I am using? The answer is yes. Number two, is he omnipresent? Omnipresence means you have created a product that is present all over the world. So for example, Coca-Cola is omnipresent, right? So Coca-Cola will pass, the founder of Coca-Cola will pass the test of omnipresent. Do you have anything? I mean, you scored 0 there. Now, has Bill Gates invented something that is present anywhere in the world? The answer is yes. Number 3, can he pass the test of love? Is Bill Gates loving, right? Of course, maybe you pass that test. I don't know. But is Bill Gates loving? Now, if we place love under the microscope of what you do for humanity, that you made your own money trading with your own innovation, and you made enough money that you now started a foundation, and your foundation was solving the problem of malaria in Africa, that you don't even belong there, you are not from their country, that your foundation single-handedly stopped polio in Nigeria, right? That will pass the test of love, right? Because you don't know them. In fact, they are be abusing you right now, calling you Antichrist, but you are still trying to find vaccine or whatever. So it will pass that test. Good. Now, let us check the test of sovereign. Is Bill Gates sovereign in his field such that everyone looks up to him? Of course, it will pass that test. Let us check the test of omniscience. And like we said with you, omniscience means that you are all-knowing in your sector, that your brain defines what happens in that sector. Of course, it will pass that test. Now, if we check this DNA, the parameters we have used to, of course, I don't want to go into things like holiness, because holiness means integration. Holiness is the word integrate, which means you are one and the same in all situations. Everywhere you go, you don't hide yourself. This is who I am. What you see is what you get. Some of us cannot even pass that test because religion has destroyed us to a level that we have two lives. There's a life we show up when we show up in our religious houses. There's another life. I mean, you have things in your heart that you want to say, but you cannot say it because you are afraid of the person you respect. You're afraid of your leader. You don't want them to get angry. You don't want to get, but you say it privately. So you cannot pass the test of holiness at that. Now, so some of these guys will. So if these guys will pass this test of DNA of God, what right do we have to say they are not God's children? I mean, sorry, we are just thinking together. Now, I want you to now put yourself in God's position. Put yourself in God's position. God is a giver of resources. He has endued you with resources. So imagine on the judgment day, right? 2 people are coming down to heaven to give a report, because what we're going to do in heaven or when we die is to go and give an account of what we have done with our lives, right? And 2 people show up. So you are God this time around, be the judge. You are God and you are sitting on your throne. And 2 people come back. And one person says, God, I want to thank you, for sending me to this planet. God, when I got to the planet, in fact, there were so many people, they were so wicked. I preached for them to change. I did everything, and I became an usher, I became a choir, and God, I sang beautifully to bless the congregation. That was all I did. God, this is what I have done with all the gifts. Yet, inside that person is a gift of song that should serve humanity. He did not serve humanity, but he has come. He's an usher or he's a choir member, and that's fine. And another person shows up and he said, God, I have gone to the planet. The one thing you gave me was the gift of invention. And I've invented Microsoft. And my Microsoft, the money I made from it, I started a foundation. I have stopped the problem of malaria. I have stopped the problem of cholera. I have produced toilets for people in Africa. I have stopped the problem of polio in Nigeria. God, I am even gone ahead to fund vaccine that can cure corona, blah, 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 blah. if you were in God's position, who will you say welcome and who will you say depart? And I want you to be very, very honest with yourself this morning. Now, the whole idea of this broadcast this morning is not to say, because I'm not an L accreditation officer, I don't even know who is who. It's not to even judge. It's to begin to think and say, if Jesus says, greater works shall we do. That's what Jesus said. Who is doing greater works than Jesus on this planet right now? Is it you? Are you even matching what God has done? Or you are doing below what God has done? Greater works means greater works. So the guy who invented IVF, that has now made it possible for more people to have children, is doing greater works, right? Because now, by IVF, more people can have children. The guy who has invented Panadol to cure headache, for example, is doing greater works because we no longer need to line up and wait for Jesus to come and lay hands on us. Just by ingesting that, you can find a lot of people cured of, headache or whatever you. Right. So if we are very sincere with ourselves, we will realize that what we call our work is below what Jesus has done. But Jesus said, greater work shall we do. So if the guys we detest, the guys we speak against, the guys we assume are going to hell, are doing greater works, by what power are they doing the greater works? Is it by the power of the devil or by the power of God? If you now agree that they are doing it by the power of the devil, right, then you are acceding to the fact that the devil is superior to what God can produce. But the answer is no. So that leaves us with one option. Is there a possibility that there is something about God and his operation that we have not understood, that we are now living in the sense of entitlement mentality, just thinking that by doing sinner's prayer, we have become God's children, and that's where it ends, right? Is there an entitlement mentality that is killing us, right? Because Jesus made a particular statement. He said, woe unto you. He said, because the prostitutes and the tax collectors are getting into the kingdom ahead of you, while the children of the kingdom are being left behind. I think there's something about our entitlement mentality that makes us settle with sinner's prayer and makes us settle with being usher. So now that churches have been closed and you can't be usher, you can't be choir, you can't be anything. How are you now serving God? Because what we've been made to believe before now is that, when you clean toilet, you are serving God. Well, when you are usher, you are serving. I have no problem with that at all. But how are you now serving God? Let your light, let your solution, let your product, let your innovation so shine, become usable before men. Men is men, which means all men across the globe, right? Let your solution be visible to all men across the globe, that they may see the potency of your product, that they may see the potency, which means they can use your product. Then by using your product, they glorify your Father in heaven, that it's only God that could have put this in the mind of man to create this. Some guy created aeroplane, that is God's product. Some guy created car that you drive, that is God's product. Some guy has created telephone that has made us communicate better, that is God's product, right? So if God's product is being produced by someone who is not God's child, then how is God able to reach him? What we have failed to realize is this: if God is the maker of all heaven and earth, we are now saying, by saying they are not children of God, that God has created a man that is now powerless in activating. Now, if God cannot activate him through innovation and invention, are we now saying is the devil inspiring them to create what they are creating? Guys, it is time to rethink. Where I'm going is, can you begin to challenge your brain, challenge your mind to begin to function like God? Can you begin to think of any invention that you can create that can serve the cause of humanity? Every of God's product is serving the cause of humanity. God's product does not serve Christians alone or serve Muslims alone. It serves humanity. And a function of his product are products like sun. Sun shines on everyone. Moon shines on everyone. Water is usable by all. Land, everyone can stand in land. On the land, everyone can eat food grown from the soil. These are God's product. It's not a Christian son, a Muslim son, a Christian land, a Muslim land, a Christian here, a Muslim here. Every of these God's product is usable by all, which means all is all still are God's children. So if God's product is usable by all, how dare you create a product that is yours usable by a sect of people? How dare you create a product that you exclude others from and you say this one is for Buddhists, it cannot be for Christians? No, right? He's the God of all flesh. There is nothing too hard for him to do. So guys, this morning I have come to ask, who is God's child based on the parameters we have listed. Now, if you realize that you have failed that test, it is time to activate your mind and begin to think like God. That God, how can I become omnipresent? How can I become omnipotent in my field? Because you were made in God's image. You were made like him, like father, like son. If your father is sovereign all over the world, you need to be sovereign. If your father is omnipresent, then the capacity to be omnipresent must be present in you. Oh Lord my God, how excellent is your name in all the earth, not just in your village, not just among your sect. Even among your sect, is your name excellent among your sect. God's name is excellent in all the earth. There are people who have innovated things that the whole world is using. Their names are excellent in all the earth. Guys, we are doing lesser works. We are doing lower works. And we cannot stick with this laziness and claim we are God's children. It is time for you to begin to manifest the DNA of God, to begin to resemble God in your operating system, in your productivity. When you do that, you'd realize that you will serve God, you will serve humanity, and everyone will be proud of you, because at that, then you will match God's creativity, you will match God's love, you will match God's omnipotence, you will match God's omniscience, you will match God's omnipresence, you will match a sovereign, and you will look like him. That people will look at you and they say, wow, this must be a God. Remember that if for those of you who read the Bible, Paul got to a place and he performed the miracle, Peter, and the people knelt down and they said, this is God come down in the form of man. What looks like miracle in the age gone by is what we now call invention and innovation. In the age gone by, people did not believe that a house can fly, but now aeroplanes are flying. So guys, it is time to activate your thinking, and I hope I've not troubled your brain this morning. Sorry, pardon me. This is my thinking, and this is the forum PFthinks. Thank you. Have a fantastic Sunday. My name is Praise Fowowe, and please, if your beliefs contradict what I've shared, please stick to your beliefs. I just want to think this morning, I just come to ask a few questions. But I believe if you meditate on the question I've asked this morning, it will produce better works, greater works in you. You will no longer settle for mediocrity, and you will begin to innovate and create a product that the whole world can use, and you begin to look like your Father. Look at what Jesus brought. For God so loved the world that he gave his only, he brought a solution that the whole world can find usable. What solutions are you creating? Can you match the DNA of God? If you cannot match it, begin to create your plan on how to match God's DNA. Thank you very much. You must believe that you are God-like, you are made in God's image. I really, really appreciate and celebrate you for joining me every morning. I appreciate, and I say that be like God, become the best version of yourself, manifest God's glory which resides in you. Have a fantastic day. Bye-bye.